Have you ever felt like you're the hardest worker in the room, but nobody seems to notice? You put in the hours, you nail your tasks, but when it comes to recognition or promotion, you're constantly overlooked. If that sounds familiar, then you need to hear this story. There was once a young, ambitious man who started a new job. He was determined to prove himself, so he worked tirelessly. He arrived early, stayed late, and became an absolute expert at his role. Soon he was the most efficient and knowledgeable person on his team. He could solve problems nobody else could touch, but despite his incredible performance, he was stuck. His manager never seemed to acknowledge his contributions, and his career was at a standstill. He felt invisible and deeply frustrated. One day, he confided in an older, wiser mentor. He explained his situation, how he was the backbone of the team, yet completely unappreciated. The mentor listened patiently and then gave him some peculiar advice. He said, "I want you to call in sick tomorrow, just take one day off." The young man was confused. How would taking a day off help him get noticed? But he trusted his mentor, so the next day he stayed home. What happened at the office was chaos. A critical issue came up that only the young man knew how to handle. The team struggled, projects stalled, and his absence was felt by everyone, especially his manager. When he returned to work the next day, his manager called him into his office. He said, "Yesterday was a disaster without you. We didn't realize how much we depend on your skills. We need to talk about a promotion and a raise." The young man was ecstatic. The mentor's advice had worked like a charm. He had finally demonstrated his true value. Feeling empowered, he started thinking, if taking one day off got him a promotion, what could taking more days off do? He began to use this tactic frequently. Whenever he felt unappreciated or wanted to remind everyone of his importance, he'd take a day off. At first, it worked. People would scramble in his absence, and he'd return feeling validated. But soon, the tide began to turn. His frequent absences started creating more problems than they solved. His team couldn't rely on him anymore. Projects were delayed not because he was the only one who could do them, but because he simply wasn't there. His unreliability became a bigger issue than his expertise. One day his manager called him in again, but this time it wasn't for a promotion. He was fired, devastated and confused. He went back to his mentor. "What happened?" he asked. "Your advice worked perfectly at first, but now I've lost everything." The mentor sighed and said, "You only understood half of the lesson. The point of taking that first day off was to make them see the light you provide, but you started flickering the light on and off so often that you became unpredictable. Think of it this way. If a light bulb is essential, you appreciate it when it's on. But if that bulb starts flickering erratically, making it impossible to rely on, what do? You don't just appreciate it more when it's on. You replace it with a more reliable one. You made yourself unreliable, so they found a replacement." This story holds a powerful lesson for all of us in our careers and even in our lives. It's a lesson about balance. Working hard is fundamental, but it's not enough if your contributions go unnoticed. You have to learn how to strategically demonstrate your value to make sure people see the light you bring. That might mean speaking up about your achievements, taking on high-visibility projects, or yes, even strategically stepping back so your absence highlights your presence. However, and this is the crucial part, you can never let that strategy slide into unreal. Proving your worth is not about holding people hostage with your skills. It's about consistently being the person they can count on. True value isn't just about being brilliant. It's about being brilliantly dependable. The ultimate goal is to become someone who is both indispensable and reliable. You want your boss and your team to think, not only is this person amazing at what they do, but we can also always count on them to be there. That is the sweet spot. That is where real, sustainable career growth happens. So, take a moment to reflect on your own situation. Are you working in the dark, hoping someone will eventually notice your shine? Or are you flickering so much that you're becoming a liability? Find that balance. Learn to shine brightly and consistently. Be so good they can't ignore you, and so reliable they can't replace you. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more content to help you navigate your career and life. See you in the next one.